The wind howled across the Wyoming plains like a restless beast, whipping snow into white sheets that blinded even the hardiest of eyes. Rancher Jack Thompson tugged his coat tighter and squinted through the blizzard, his boots sinking into the thick drifts. The cattle were secure in the barn, their low moans barely audible over the roar of the storm, but something had caught his attention, a faint, desperate scream carried on the wind. His heart thumped. Normally cautious, Jack's instincts refused to ignore a cry for help. He scanned the swirling whiteness. Trees bent under the weight of snow, branches snapping with sharp cracks that echoed through the frozen air. He clenched his teeth against the sting of frost, shoving forward, following the faint sound. Minutes felt like hours as he stumbled over hidden rocks and frozen ground, each step a battle against the elements. Finally, through the thick curtain of snow, he spotted a figure on the ground, struggling beneath a fallen tree. Jack's heart sank. A woman, trapped, barely moving, the snow settling like a silent shroud around her. Without hesitation, he dropped to his knees, grasping the heavy branches. His hands numbed instantly, the bark biting through his gloves, but he refused to stop. Inch by inch, he lifted the tree just enough to free her. The woman gasped, eyes wide with fear and cold, and Jack grabbed her arm, helping her to her feet. She trembled violently, teeth chattering, her coat soaked and frozen. "Are you okay?" he shouted over the wind. I think so," she stammered, her voice fragile, almost fragile enough to be swallowed by the storm. "Thank you, so much." Jack's gaze softened. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said. "Come with me. My cabin isn't far. You'll warm up there." She nodded, leaning slightly on him for support. They trudged through the snow, each step a challenge as the blizzard whipped around them. The world had narrowed to their struggle, the roaring wind and whiteout skies pressing in from all sides. Hours, or maybe minutes, later, the small, sturdy cabin emerged from the storm, a beacon of warmth and safety. Jack opened the door, ushering her inside. Inside, the fire crackled, casting dancing shadows across the room. Jack handed her a blanket and a steaming mug of coffee. She sank into the warmth gratefully, shivering less as the heat seeped through her frozen body. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, the storm outside echoing the tension in the room. She introduced herself simply as Emily, her eyes guarded but grateful. Jack nodded, returning her gaze with quiet curiosity. Something about her felt unusual, almost otherworldly, but he brushed it aside. For now, she was just a stranger rescued from the fury of nature, a person in need. Little did Jack know, this chance encounter would ripple far beyond this stormy night, entwining his humble life with a secret that could change everything. In the chaos of the blizzard, fate had quietly made its move. The storm had finally passed, leaving the Wyoming plains coated in a thick blanket of untouched snow. Inside the small cabin, the fire's warmth wrapped around Jack and Emily, chasing away the chill that clung stubbornly to their bones. Jack poured her another cup of coffee, the steam curling upward like a fragile shield against the bitter cold outside. Emily accepted it with a small, grateful smile, her hands trembling slightly as they wrapped around the mug. For a long moment, neither spoke, listening to the soft hiss of the fire and the occasional groan of the cabin settling under the weight of snow. Jack studied her quietly. She seemed delicate, almost fragile, yet her eyes held a calm strength that intrigued him. She sipped her coffee slowly, as though savoring more than just the warmth, perhaps the safety, the quiet, or the unexpected kindness of a stranger. I don't know how to thank you," Emily said finally, her voice low and cautious. "You saved me back there. I could have," she shook her head, cutting off the thought. "You don't have to thank me," Jack replied simply. "Anyone would have done the same. Or at least should have." He paused, unsure why he felt compelled to explain. He wasn't usually one for words, but something about her presence demanded it. Emily nodded, her gaze flicking to the cabin's window where the snow still swirled lightly in gentle drifts. "I'm traveling," she said softly. "I've been through a lot of towns, places, people, but I've never met someone who would risk themselves like that." "Not really." Jack shrugged, brushing off the compliment. "I've got a ranch. You get used to doing things to survive. You help when it's needed, and you keep moving. That's life on the plains." She laughed softly, a sound that seemed out of place in the small, rustic cabin, yet perfectly at ease with the quiet warmth. "It's a good life, I think. Simple, honest. I admire that." Jack's curiosity piqued. There was something about her tone, something in the careful way she spoke, that hinted at a story she wasn't telling. Her hands tightened around the coffee mug, and her eyes, though warm, held a secret. He wanted to ask, but the words died in his throat. He had a feeling she wasn't ready to reveal it yet. And maybe, he thought quietly, that wasn't his place. As the afternoon light filtered through frost-lined windows, Jack and Emily settled into a quiet companionship. She helped him clean up, mend minor broken things in the cabin, and even feed the animals that had survived the storm. There was an ease in their shared labor, a rhythm that seemed to speak of trust forming silently. And yet, Emily remained mysterious, graceful, kind, and quietly strong, but undeniably hiding something. Jack couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't just another traveler. Something about her presence felt different, important. He didn't yet know how different, how impactful. And Emily, sipping her coffee and staring into the fire, quietly acknowledged the bond forming, a bond that would soon grow far stronger than either of them could imagine. Little did Jack know, the stranger in his cabin carried a secret that could change the entire course of his life. For now, however, the fire crackled, the storm was gone, and for a brief, perfect moment, the world outside had nothing to do with them. Days passed, and the Wyoming plains had transformed from a frozen wasteland into a sparkling expanse of ice-glinting snow under the pale winter sun. The blizzard was long gone, but its memory lingered in the ache of Jack's muscles and the chill that sometimes still bit through his coat. Emily had stayed longer than either of them expected. She helped him repair fences, mend the barn roof, and feed the cattle. The townsfolk whispered as they passed the cabin, curious about the mysterious woman who had arrived during the storm and refused to leave. Jack noticed her skill and determination. She wasn't simply surviving, she was learning, adapting, and contributing with a quiet confidence that surprised him. She lifted hay bales as easily as he did, her hands steady, her movements deliberate. But it wasn't just her strength that intrigued him, it was her grace under pressure, her calm presence, and the faint, unspoken sorrow that sometimes shadowed her smile. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned pink and gold, a formal envelope arrived, carried by the town's postman. Emily's hands trembled slightly as she accepted it, a rare hesitation in her usually composed demeanor. Jack, curious but cautious, stayed quiet, letting her read in privacy. When she finally looked up, her eyes were unreadable, reflecting both relief and anxiety. "I have something I need to tell you," she began, her voice steady but soft. Jack leaned against the doorway, sensing the gravity in her tone. "I haven't been completely honest with you. About who I am." Jack frowned slightly, uncertain what she meant. "What do you mean?" Emily took a deep breath. "My name is Emily Davenport. My family, we own a large estate in the territory. It's not just land. It's wealth. A lot of it. More than most people could imagine. I came out here, away from everything, to travel, to see life without the trappings of money. And then, the blizzard happened, and you saved me." Jack blinked, stunned. The woman who had been lifting hay, feeding cattle, and helping him repair fences wasn't just a traveler, she was one of the wealthiest people in the region. For a moment, he felt awkward about the simplicity of his life compared to hers. He wanted to ask questions, to understand, but he also felt an unexpected warmth. She had chosen to stay, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Emily smiled faintly, noticing the hesitation on his face. "I didn't come here to flaunt my wealth. I'm not here for business, or to buy anything. I'm here because of you. Because of the life you've built, and the kindness you showed me. I wanted to see the world through your eyes, even for a little while." Jack swallowed, the words catching in his throat. Suddenly, the simple act of rescuing a stranger had connected him to a life far beyond his imagination. And though the revelation could have created distance between them, it didn't. Instead, it made their bond stronger, built not on wealth, or titles, or privilege, but on trust, courage, and shared experience. As the fire crackled that evening, casting shadows across the cabin, Jack realized that the storm hadn't just brought Emily to him. It had brought a new chapter into his life, one neither of them could have predicted. Winter had begun to loosen its grip on the Wyoming plains. The snow melted slowly under the pale sun, revealing frozen streams and the first hints of green beneath the thawing ground. Jack and Emily worked side by side, their partnership no longer just about survival, it had evolved into something deeper, something neither had expected. Emily's presence had become as natural as the sunrise over the plains, her laughter echoing through the ranch, lightening the hard labor that once felt endless. Emily invested her time and resources quietly, modernizing aspects of the ranch without changing its soul. New tools and equipment arrived, but the barns retained their rustic charm, the fences remained sturdy but familiar, and the fields kept their simple, rugged beauty. Jack taught her to ride, to feed the livestock, and to mend fences with patience and precision. In return, she shared knowledge of management and strategy, her keen mind uncovering ways to make the ranch more sustainable. Their strengths complemented each other effortlessly, as if the universe had deliberately paired them. The townsfolk, initially suspicious of the wealthy stranger living among them, soon warmed to Emily. Her humility and genuine kindness shone through every interaction. She listened more than she spoke, helped without hesitation, and never flaunted her wealth. Jack's neighbors began to see the ranch in a new light, a thriving, well-managed place where a balance of tradition and progress created opportunities for everyone involved. One evening, after a long day tending the livestock, Jack and Emily sat on the porch, watching the sunset bleed orange and pink across the horizon. Emily leaned back, her eyes reflecting the fading light, and Jack noticed a rare vulnerability in her expression. "You know," she said softly, "I never imagined I'd feel at home here. I thought wealth and titles mattered. I thought I needed everything the world offered to matter. But this feels real." Jack smiled, his gaze steady. "It's the life we build with our hands and hearts that matters," he said. "Not the money, not the land, not the titles. You didn't come here because of what you have, you came because of what you could be. And now, we're building it together." Emily reached for his hand, intertwining her fingers with his. The warmth of human connection, forged through hardship, trust, and shared labor, outweighed any material wealth. They were equals here, partners in life and work, their bond unshakable. As winter fully gave way to spring, the ranch flourished. Crops grew stronger, animals thrived, and their partnership became an example to the community. Stories of the rancher and the mysterious wealthy stranger spread, inspiring neighbors and travelers alike. But Jack and Emily cared little for attention, they were content in their shared purpose and newfound love. What had started as a chance encounter during a fierce blizzard had transformed into a life neither could have predicted. A humble rancher and the richest woman in the territory had discovered that courage, kindness, and trust were worth more than gold. Together, they had built not just a thriving ranch, but a life of harmony, respect, and shared dreams. And as the sun set over the Wyoming plains, the future stretched before them, a vast, open horizon filled with possibilities, hope, and a love forged in the heart of a storm.